Okay, in the two previous videos, we showed you how to make a copy of a wrapped folder, a library item that's within a wrap folder. We've showed you how to rename the different components, how to embed them. Now it's time to show you how to embed that actual components wrapper into your web page. So if you haven't watched the two previous videos, very important you watch those to get the whole gist of the idea. We're going to embed our new slider team wrapper page into our team roster page. Okay, so all we have to do is basically open up our team roster page, find the original component, and I want to put a little preemptive on this one. Very important at this point in time, before you go and try and embed a copy of a component, a page specific component into an existing page, make sure the page you're copying it into works properly. Make sure that the component that's already in there is the exact same component type that you're going to be replacing. For example, my team roster page already displays, let me just, oh, there we go, I had to hit the refresh. This particular page that we're updating, it already has the default slider in it. So all I'm doing is I'm replacing the existing default slider with the new default slider that I've created. If this page didn't already have the default slider in it, then there's a bunch of other steps you'd have to go through ahead of time. First of all, you'd have to make sure that this particular page had the proper style sheet links and the actual component that we're replacing in the page already. So if you're, for example, creating a new parallax slider, for example, right? Let's say we wanted to have a parallax slider show up in a different page. Well, you'd want to make sure that the page you're putting it into already has a parallax slider in it and that you're just swapping out the components. That way you can make sure that the style sheets and the containers for the CSS are already in place for you. So make sure that you go ahead and complete that task first. And you can do that by watching the tutorials on swapping out header components and linking in different style sheets. Okay, so very important, make sure, and I reiterate this, the page you're copying the new library component into, make sure it already has that component in the page. Okay, so with that said, here's our team roster page, and we're just going to sort of scroll down the page until we find the existing image component. Oh, there it is right there. I scrolled past it. How do you find it? Well, typically it's within an image component div tag. You could actually just search for this link right here, and let me just give us a little bit of room. That's typically how I do it, is I just look for the yellow embed code, right? Library assets, when embedded into a page in Dreamweaver, always highlight in yellow. So you can just look for the begin library item, the first line comment tag there, and then you can see what's being embedded. And you'll see that the default slider wrapper, it's actually the default slider wrapper page that's embedded. And what we're going to do is we're going to be embedding our slider team wrapper page. Okay, how do we do that? Very simple. Put your mouse somewhere on the yellow, find the live item down below in the quick tag selector bar and click it. Press delete to get rid of the original component. Now we can insert our duplicate or the copy of our component. So we're just going to give ourselves a little bit of white space. We're going to go to the assets panel. We're going to look for the slider team wrapper. There it is right there. We're going to select it, click insert, and save. Now let's just preview it in our browser to make sure that it was updated correctly. Okay, I just popped over here, refreshed it, and it's actually showing the images that I had in there. So good. That's how to take an existing library item that's in a folder, make a copy of the folder, rename the components, properly embed them into the wrapper, and then properly embed the wrapper into your template page. So some of the keys here, if things don't work, and the number one error that or not error, but the number one challenge I've seen is taking or creating a new component and trying to embed it into a page that didn't already have that component in there. And when I say didn't have it in there, before you go and embed your copy or your duplicate component, preview your web page, make sure the original component is working properly. Okay, it's sort of a garbage in, garbage out. If there's something wrong with the page before, if you've been working on it and been trying to update it and things like that, make sure the page is working properly first. Then go and insert your new component. Okay, that's that's one of the big things. The other one is in the excuse me, in the wrapper. you want to make sure that when you are first of all renaming your folder and saving it, and it says do you want to update the links, you do not want to update the links. Things will break all over the place if you do that. Okay, you don't want to do that after you've renamed the folder. In the wrapper folder, make sure you've renamed your library page and your wrapper, and make sure that you've embedded your library page into the wrapper page. Okay, and that you'd see something, it would actually show you the right library slider, slider team LBI, something like that, versus the original default slider and linkage to the original component.